Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ. So in the previous two sessions, what we have seen is, in the first session we have seen some important properties of ratio, okay, and we have also discussed what are the type of questions you can get from important properties of ratio. Then in the second session we have seen the mathematical uses of ratio, and we have also discussed about the patterns of the type of questions, and the actual questions we will discuss after this session that I am completely dedicating for problem solving. Now in this session what we are going to do is we need to know what is proportion and what is variation. So we'll understand the basic concepts, and then we will look at the types of questions which can be asked from proportion and variation. So in this session I will cover proportion and variation. With that, our concepts in ratio, proportion, variation will be over, and then we will take up actual questions. Okay. Now, what do you mean by proportionals? See, let's suppose you have two ratios or two fractions like A is to B and C is to D. Okay, so basically these are two fractions like A by B and C by D. Okay, now if I am telling you that these two ratios are equal, so it's like A is to B equal to C is to D. Okay, or A by B equal to C by D. You can also write it as A is to B as C is to D. Okay, this is one of the way of representing this. So the point which I need to tell you is, if A by B is equal to C by D, or if two ratios are equal like this, the four terms in the ratio, what are the four terms? A, B, C, D. Okay, so these four terms will be proportionals. So here in this case, A, B, C, D are proportionals. Now how will you represent this? You will represent like this: A is to B as C is to D, or you will also write it as A is to B equal to C is to D. This is simple representation, right? Now again, in this some of the words that you need to know, because the question you may come across these words, right? This A and D are what we call as extremes. Okay, so extremes, and B and C are means. Okay, so in the ratio, what do you mean by extremes? So if two ratios are equal, you will represent like this. So two extreme values, that's what extreme. So midpoints, or these two values are the means. Okay, so in the ratio, what is mean and what is extreme is what we have discussed now. Now again, one more very important property that we need to discuss under proportion is, let's suppose four or two ratios are equal, so the four components which are there in the ratio are proportionals. Okay, so two ratios are equal, so four components will be proportionals. Now if the four quantities are proportional, okay, like A, B, C, D, in which situation? A by B equal to C by D, or A is to B as C is to D. Okay, in this situation the product of the extremes will be equal to the product of the mean. That means I can write it as AD equal to BC. This is nothing but cross multiplication, AD and BC. We already know, but we are discussing under proportion. Okay, so if you multiply two extremes and if you multiply means, both will be equal if four quantities are proportional. The key word is these four are proportional, and when it will be proportional, two ratios need to be equal. So based on this concept, now what will be the question which can ask? They can give you three ratios like this. Okay, three quantities can be given, so they will ask you the fourth quantity. It may not be a CAT question, but one of the portion of a CAT question can be this. Okay, so if you have this knowledge, you may be able to start a question. I'm not telling you this will be a question, but if you take lower level exams like IBPS or SSE, this may be a question in itself. Okay, so if you need to find B or whatever it is C, if D is what you need to find out. Okay, so if D is not given, A, B, C is given, then D is BC by A. Similarly, you can find others also. Okay, so if one unknown, you can find it. The reason is there's the property, if four quantities are proportional, the extremes will be equal to, the product of extremes will be equal to the product of means. Now next property is, if three quantities, okay, are in continued proportion, like A, B, C are in continued proportion, means it's like this: A is to B equal to B is to C. So three quantities which are in continued proportion, you can see here. Okay, in this case, again the same property you will apply. Here the mean means B only. Okay, so here AC will be equal to B square. So in this case AC is equal to B square. We know this, right? Now in this case, B is said to be the mean proportional between A and C. Okay, so B is the mean proportional between A and C is the third proportional to A and B. Okay, so C is the third proportional to A and B. So these are, see, you in questions you'll get like this: C is the third proportional to A and B, or 3 is the, or 4 is the third proportional to 2 and 3, like that. Okay, and here B is the mean proportional. Keywords is what we need to know. So what all things I've discussed: extremes, means, mean proportional, and the third proportional. Now again, if three quantities are in continued proportion, okay, like this, A is to B as B is to C, or A is to B equal to B is to C, then three quantities are A, B, C, right? So the first is to third, that means A is to C is equal to the duplicate of first to the second. That means, duplicate means we have discussed in the previous session. Okay, so what do you mean by duplicate ratio? A ratio is compounded with itself. So duplicate of the first and second means here first is A, second is B. So duplicate of A is to B means A square is to B square. So this is another property. A is to C is equal to A square is to B square, with which you can get questions. Okay, just keep these properties in mind. Very, very useful when you solve questions. Now I hope this point is clear for you. Now next, see, again you can derive a lot of properties from this concept itself. See, if four quantities A, B, C, D are proportional, okay, so A, B, C, D are proportion, you can see a lot of properties and results. Okay, so let me start off with invertendo. So invertendo, what is this property? What does this mean is actually A by B equal to C by D. Okay, that's what I mean by two ratios are equal, then the four will be proportional. So if in this case, okay, if you invert it, if you reverse it, that means B by A is equal to D by C. So that's what invertendo. So if two ratios are equal, if you invert it, then also it will be equal. So this ratio will be equal. I hope this is clear for you. Basically you are taking the reciprocal, so it has to be equal. Now next is alternando. That means you are exchanging, or you are, okay, so alternando. Okay, again the situation is like this: A by B equal to C by D. Okay, so as per this property, A by C equal to B by D. Okay, this B will go here, C will come here. Okay, so A by C equal to B by D, cross multiplication. Okay, so A by C equal to B by D, alternando. Now what do you mean by componendo? Componendo. A by B equal to C by D, that's where we started, right? Two ratios are equal, that means 4 are directly, 4 are in proportional. Then see, you add something, okay, you add the denominators. A plus B by B will be equal to C plus D by D. What you have done? You have added the denominator to the numerator in both cases. Okay, in both cases you added the denominator to numerator, so effectively there is no change. Okay, so those two will be equal. Next is dividendo. So what do you mean by dividendo? Dividendo means opposite of what we have done. Instead of addition, you will subtract. See, again the situation is same, A by B equal to C by D. So if you do A minus B by B, okay, it will be equal to C minus D by D. So what you have done is you subtracted, okay, the denominator. Here also you subtracted the denominator. Both will be equal. So that's what dividendo. Next is componendo and dividendo, both together. Okay, so componendo and dividendo. So it's like A plus B divided by A minus B equal to C plus D divided by C minus D. So here the condition is A by B equal to C by D. Two ratios are given, both are equal. That means 4 are proportional. In that case, A plus B by A minus B and C plus D by C minus D, both are equal. Okay, so 5 points that we have discussed. We started off with this assumption, right? 4 quantities are proportional. That means in all the 5 properties that we have discussed, the assumption is A by B equal to C by D. So A, B, C, D are proportional. Then invertendo means you reverse it. That means B by A equal to D by C. Then alternando means A by C equal to B by D. Okay. Then we have seen a componendo. So you are adding the denominator in each case, so the ratio remains the same. And dividendo, you subtract, ratio remains the same. And componendo and dividendo means in numerator you add, in denominator you subtract. Okay, so then also it remains the same. So this property you need to be kept in your mind. We will be using this property when you are solving questions. A lot of complex questions you can solve just by remembering this property. See, again I tell you, remembering this property is very, very difficult. We have shortcut methods for everything, but see, when we discuss about the concepts, I have to discuss it. So this is just for the sake of discussing. In fact, some of you may not be interested in learning the property. Absolutely fine, okay. Even I also don't want to teach this, but just for the sake of teaching, I'm teaching. It is there in the textbook, so I'm teaching you. Okay, so if you want to go with the concepts, this is what you need to do. Otherwise, we have shortcut methods for everything, and in the problem solving session, see, I have taught you all these properties, but I'll also teach you how not to use these properties and solve the questions faster. Okay, so you will understand it soon. Now, next we need to understand variation. Okay, and variation is very, very important. Variation means 2 points. Okay, one is direct proportion and next is indirect proportion. Okay, so out of this, indirect proportion is very, very important, and you will get a lot of questions from indirect proportion. So we'll understand both. So what do you mean by direct proportion? See, let's take one situation, A by B equal to C. Okay, so what will happen? See, let's suppose C is constant. The C is constant. That means I am fixing the value of C. So what happens if A increases? If A increases, if B remain the same, C will increase. But the idea is C has to be constant. So what will happen to B? To keep C as constant, B also have to increase in the same ratio or in the same proportion. Okay, so similarly, if A decreased, B will have to decrease. So if there is a change in A, there will be a change in B. If there is an increase in A, there will be an increase in B. If there is a decrease in A, there will be a decrease in B, and based on the same proportion. Okay, and this situation is what we call as direct proportion. A varies when B varies, or B varies when A varies. So both are directly proportional. So the way you understand what is the logical implication. So if I ask you, if A increases, B increase. If A decreases, B decrease. Now in terms of maths, in terms of calculation, if A increased by 10%, B increased by 10%. A decreased by 10%, B also decreased by 10%. So directly proportional. Whatever is the increase in A, same will be the increase in B. Not in absolute terms, but in percentage terms. Now how will you visualize this graphically? You can see a graph like this. Okay, so if this is B, this is A. So both increase in a direct proportion. Okay, so the graph will be like this. This is A equal to B or X is equal to Y line. When we solve DI questions, I will discuss with you about this graph X is equal to Y line. If you know that concept, that's going to be very easy, because this is 1 1, okay, 2 2, 3 3, 4 4, like this it will go. So one point you need to remember is A by B is constant, so this is directly proportional. And you won't get much questions on the basis of direct proportion, because see, the questions are like the speed is increased by 10%. Now when it comes to speed, distance, time, what is directly proportional? Speed and distance. What is the equation? Distance by speed is equal to time. Okay, so I am keeping the time constant. That means you can take 1 hour for the journey. So if I increase the distance, you definitely have to increase the speed, then only you will reach, right? If you decrease the distance, keeping the time constant, you need to reduce the speed. Okay, so that you will take 1 hour if it is fixed. So the idea is, you won't get questions like this, because you know, if distance is increased by 10%, okay, distance increased by 10%, speed have to be increased by 10%. Now other situation is distance by time is equal to speed. In this case, you can keep the speed as constant, 60 km/h. So if distance increases, time will also increase. So this is directly proportional. So if distance increases by 10%, time will increase by 10%. So you won't get questions from direct proportion. Easy and directly you can mark. Same is the case with time and work. Okay, so see, efficiency into time is equal to work. This is inversely proportional. But if I write time is equal to work by efficiency, then this is directly proportional. So if time is fixed, then if you have more work, you need more people. Okay, or if efficiency is fixed, if you have more work, you have to take more time if efficiency is fixed. I hope this is clear. So the proportion will vary accordingly. So there is no possibility of getting questions from direct proportion, but there is a possibility of getting a lot of questions from inverse proportion. So what do you mean by inverse proportion? How will you represent that? A, B equal to C. We have discussed this 2-3 times, right? So A, B equal to C, where C is a constant. So if A increases, what will happen with B? B will decrease. Similarly, if A decreases, B will increase. And you can read from this direction also. If B increases, A decrease. If B decreases, A increase. And we have also discussed how much increase in A will be there if B increased by a certain percentage, right? So if you remember, I have discussed about that. See, if A increase, we know B will decrease. Now if A increased by 1 by x, okay, 1 by x, then 1 by x increase will be there. B will decrease by 1 by x plus 1. So we know this is increase, so this is a decrease. Since this is increase, this is plus 1. Okay, so similarly 1 by x decrease will lead to 1 by x minus 1 increase. How to remember? Decrease will lead to increase and decrease, so here it is minus 1. So very easy to remember. Now what do you mean by this 1 by x and all? How will you get that? See, if I say 50% increase, what does this mean? 50 by 100. It is effectively 1 by 2. So what I am saying is 50% increase means 1 by 2 increase. So as per our understanding, that will lead to 1 by 3 decrease. 1 by x means 1 by x plus 1. So this will lead to 1 by 3 decrease. So I hope this is clear. So what if 25% decrease? I will write it as 25 by 100, right? 25 by 100 means 1 by 4 decrease. That will lead to, as per our formula, how much increase? 1 by x minus 1. So 1 by 3 increase. So 25% decrease will lead to 1 by 3 increase means 33.3% increase. So this is how you'll get questions. So you'll get questions like sugar rate was decreased by 20%. Okay, what will happen with the consumption if the expenditure remains same? So 20% decrease in sugar rate, we will write it as 1 by 5. Why? Because 20% means 20 by 100. That is 1 by 5. So 1 by 5 decrease means 1 by 4 increase in consumption. So what is 1 by 4? That is 25%. Okay, so 25% increase in consumption. Now similarly, instead of decrease, if there is an increase of sugar rate by 20%, okay, so this you will write as 20 by 100, right? Then 20 by 100 means 1 by 5 increase, and as per our formula, 1 by x increase will lead to 1 by x plus 1. So this 1 by 5 increase will lead to 1 by 6 decrease in the sugar, in the consumption of sugar, right? So 1 by 6 means what? Now this calculation we can do like this. 1 by 3, all of you know, that is 33.33, right? So 1 by 6 will be half of it, that means 16.66. So that's what you get. Okay, so 20% increase will lead to 16% decrease, and 20% decrease will lead to 25% increase. Since these two are different, that's why you can expect question from indirect proportion or inverse proportion, right? In the previous case, if 20% increase means 20% increase in the other. Okay, so here instead of increase it will be decrease, so the number varies, so you can expect questions. Now where else you can expect questions? So here what we have seen is rate into consumption is equal to expenditure, which is similar to AB equal to C. We are actually discussing inverse proportion, right? So here A inversely proportional to B, so you can write like this. That's a mathematical understanding, right? So what does this mean? A increases, B decreases. A decreases, B increases. Now, this is applicable in this kind of question. Rate into consumption is equal to expenditure. Speed into time is equal to distance. Okay. Efficiency into time is equal to work. Okay. The speed of the motor into time taken is equal to the volume of the tank filled. Length into breadth is equal to area. Now in all these kinds of questions, this method is applicable. There is no point in writing different chapters. All these are different chapters. Like you'll see this as speed, distance, time and work, okay, pipes and cisterns, profit and loss, area based questions, right? But whatever it is, if you can represent in the form AB equal to C like this method is going to be very, very useful. So the point is, I just want to tell you that inverse proportion is more important. And see, if A increased by 10%, we understood that B will decrease by 9.09%. Okay. Now this way it is difficult, but always remember 1 by X increase will lead to 1 by X plus 1 decrease. Okay. And 1 by X decrease will lead to 1 by X minus 1 increase. Now the graphical representation, if you want to see, it will be like this. If this is A and if this is B, okay, so the graph will look like this. This is inverse proportion. Okay, now direct proportion, the graph was like this, right? So this is what A equal to B line. This line is what we call as X is equal to Y line or A equal to B line, if this is B and this is A. Okay, so I hope this is clear for all of you. Okay, now let me summarize what all things that we have done in this chapter: ratio, proportion and variation, right? So we started off with ratio, and this is nothing but a comparison between two numbers. We have seen A by B. You can write it as A is to B, right? And then we have seen some important properties of ratio. We have also seen how you write ratio as percentage. Like if you see 2 by 5, how to convert this as percentage? You will multiply it with 100. So you can just get this things as cancelled and you will write it as 40%. If you need to write it as decimal, you need to shift 2 places to the right and you can write it as 0.4. Then when we discussed about the important properties, I told you denominator equation method is very important because you can understand or you can compare two ratios easily by using that method, right? And we have seen one example, 8 by 3 and 11 by 4. If you need to compare, what you need to do is you need to make the denominator 3 as 4. Okay, so then you can see the numerator and see which one is higher and you can pick the correct answer. See, if this 3 you need to convert to 4, you need to multiply with 1.33. So multiply the numerator and denominator with 1.33, so you get 10.66 divided by 4 versus 11 by 4. So clearly you can understand this is larger, right? So this is a very effective method. Otherwise you can use percentage method also. Then we have seen various other properties, and we have seen mathematical uses of ratio, right? And one classical example that we have discussed is you'll get typical questions like A salary, B salary, the ratio will be given, right? A is to B will be given, and we have seen in one example that it was given as 2 is to 3. Then B is to C is also given. The salary between B and C ratio is 4 is to 5, and you're asked to find A is to C, right? Or they will give you the salary of A and you're asked to find C. So effectively you need to find A is to B is to C and get A and C, right? So how will you proceed is actually you see common B here. So here 3 and 4 you make it as common value, that you take LCM, you get 12. So you need to make this as 12 and this as 12. So the first ratio will be 8 by 12. Second will be 12 by 15. So ABC you can write as 8 is to 12 is to 15. Okay. So 8 and 15 is the ratio between A and C. So if A salary is 800, B salaries will be 1500, like that. But if there is more ratios, more than 3 and all, you need to have a better method, right? So if it's like A is to B is given, B is to C is given, C is to D is given, D is to E is given. Okay, so 4 ratios are given and you need to find A is to B is to C is to D is to E, right? So we have already discussed this. So what will be A? You need to take the product of all numerators, right? So this is nothing but A by B, B by C, C by D and D by E. So numerators means A, B, C, D. So A will be A, B, C, D. You take the numerators. B will be, you take this first denominator, then all the numerators. C will be first 2 numerator, okay? So C will be first 2 numerator and 2 denominator. D will be first 3 denominator and the last numerator. E will be all the 4 denominator. We have already discussed this. So you can see the starting with all numerator, ending with all denominator, and in between denominators keeps on increasing. B you have 1 denominator, C you have 2 denominator, D you have 3 denominator, E you have 4 denominator, and A all numerator, so 0 denominator. So that method we have discussed. Then we have seen ratio as a multiplier, and we have seen percentage value comparison method. We have also discussed about numerator denominator percentage change method, and I told you that's the most effective method in calculating ratio changes. Then we have seen method for calculating the value of a percentage change in the ratio, right? So then we have seen proportion and variation. So I hope this discussion is complete, and I don't think that you need to face any difficulty in the concepts of ratio, proportion, variation now. Next session we'll start solving questions. Okay.